Welcome back to Waterfront TV. The shot was taken earlier in the week in Eastern Passage, a happy little guy out for a winter swim. According to the Canadian Centre of Substance Abuse, Canadians are among the heaviest consumers of prescription drugs for non-medical purposes. In Nova Scotia alone, there have been 269 deaths in the last 5 years due to overdoses. Molly Gibson-Kirby has a look at this feature issue.
Today I'm joined by Amy Graves. She became an advocate for getting prescription drugs off the street after her brother overdosed on Dilaudid in 2011. And John Monroe, he lost his daughter just 4 days before her 21st birthday from accidentally overdosing on Dilaudids. John says the province needs tighter regulations surrounding these drugs. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I want to start with you. Why do you think so many young adults are turning to prescription drugs?
Well, just the ease of access. Instead of having to go seek out a street dealer who carries illicit narcotics, often these are found in people's medicine cabinets. And people can go into a doctor and get prescriptions themselves. It also cuts out the risk. If you have a prescription yourself, you're legally entitled to have that on your person. Therefore, if you're pulled over in a car or something and the police search you, you won't be criminally charged if you have a prescription. So a lot of people think it's the safer, easier, cheaper route.
Do you have anything to add to that?
It's often been referred to as drugstore heroin, and Dilaudid and opiates like that, drugstore heroin. And someone has actually suggested that the chief pusher in Nova Scotia is our medical establishment, if you will. As Amy says, it's easy to go to some doctors, not all doctors, but it's easy to go to some doctors and get a prescription for an opiate that is a potential killer.
What are some issues and challenges associated with the abuse of prescription drugs?
Well, I'll let Amy answer that because I think she's more of the expert in that.
I think, first of all, our prescribing guidelines are very outdated and lacking actual medical evidence. They also, like our Canadian prescribing guidelines for opioid narcotics, about half of the doctors who made those guidelines are actually funded by the pharmaceutical companies who produce these medications. Therefore, I don't feel it was an unbiased action in how they put them forth. Pharmaceutical companies are there to make profit. Therefore, they obviously would want these guidelines to make that easy. I think we need to be more conscious, and I think doctors need to be educated by people who are not paid by Big Pharma. They need to be educated through the medical schools, not pharmaceutical companies. I think that's a first start, as well as better prescription monitoring. Right now, it seems like it's just an information keeping system and it's voluntary. There's not doctors, if doctors aren't forced to check it before they write a prescription. Doctors aren't forced to do really anything. There's no real disciplinary action except for College of Physicians and Surgeons. And only a very small percentage, like a handful of cases from prescription monitoring, ever actually get referred to the college to be looked over for possible disciplinary action.
Do you think Nova Scotia's measures aimed at reducing drug abuse are working at all?
No, I don't feel. They're aware now. I mean, the past 2 years has been an incredible campaign to make the public and policymakers aware of this. Not only myself, but John Monroe, Cheryl Jones-Vino. There's lots of people now that have come on board and are advocates for this. So I feel all the government has done, yes, they've released the strategies, they've released reports, they've made working groups, but in terms of tangible things that we can see, there's been no more guidelines, there's been no mandatory education for doctors. So I really feel like it's a lot of talk and not enough action.
John, what do you want the province to be doing more to help get these drugs off the street?
We want the province, we want all the parties involved to take this more seriously. Statistically, and an accurate statistic is that in Nova Scotia, every week someone dies as a result of this prescription drug overdose, if you will, abuse. So if we had a picture in the paper of that person that had died that week, people would take it more seriously, but it doesn't. It doesn't reach the media, and most of these people that are dying in Nova Scotia are between the ages of 14 and 21. And many of them, it's the first time they've ever used these opiates. They do it because they think it's going to be cool, it's going to be fun, and the problem is the next morning they don't wake up. So it is a silent epidemic, not getting the attention it deserves. So as a consequence, the police department aren't on their toes. They're directing their attention to the things that get media attention, public attention. The teachers are aware of it. They're trying to get to their students, and we try to get to the students, Amy and I. But the students, young people, aren't properly informed about it enough that we think. I could go on. Doctors, many doctors are aware of the problems, but many just ignore it. They're not well educated in it, and I've heard this from reliable sources that doctors themselves aren't properly educated in how to prescribe properly for opiate use. Things are useful. Sorry, go ahead.
You said that you want youth to know about this more,
yes.
And I know that you both are going to high schools. Can you tell me more about that? What do they get out of when you guys come?
When we talk to groups of high school students, we talk about the real situation, and we open up the floor for questions. And at one point, usually at the end of the presentation, I ask them, I say to them, Amy and I have been in the newspaper, on the radio, and mainstream TV, and have you heard of us? And not a one of the students will raise their hand. They just plugged into that mainstream media. Teachers, on the other hand, have heard of us, so that's why we need to get to the students.
Do you think places like self-help groups like Narcotic Anonymous, are they more accessible enough for people in need?
They are very accessible. The only problem is that opioid addiction is very severe and withdrawal symptoms are intense. Usually you need to be medically detoxed first before you can even think about attending an NA meeting. Not to say that they're not helpful before. Of course, anything is better than nothing, but they often require much more attention. Once detoxed too, often methadone is administered, which is a very long process to maintain and then withdraw from methadone. So detoxing and methadone on its own, I don't feel is effective, and Narcotics Anonymous on its own, I don't feel is effective. I feel like there needs to be like a community. It has to be a multifaceted approach. You can't just pick one, just go to meetings and not detox or stop using the drug. And you can't just go on methadone without counseling or follow-up and think you're going to be cured of your addiction.
That's all the time that we have today. I want to thank you so much for taking part in this interview and letting the public know that this is a crisis in our province.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The halls at NSCC's Waterfront campus are filled with more than just students these days. Waterfront TV's Emma Lavender tells us how the school is spreading awareness about Black History Month and African Nova Scotians.
And it's not just for Black Nova Scotians, it's for everybody.
Not all forms of art are cut from the same cloth. These quilts are part of an exhibit called The Secret Codes on at the Snyder Family Gallery. But, as curator David Woods says, the fabric and stitches do more than just keep you warm. They tell an important story.
Actually, quilts was the true history here, because we could trace them from the South, back in the days when we were enslaved, all the way through. People had been quilting all that time.
The name of the exhibit, The Secret Codes, is a reference to the quilts used during the Underground Railroad. Secret messages and directions to freedom were often hidden in the designs. Woods handpicked the quilters to be featured in this exhibit, and each woman was asked to create a pictorial quilt that tells a specific story about the history of Black Nova Scotians. Jill Provo is the manager of the African Canadian Transition Program at NSCC. She brought the display there.
We want to have more Black Nova Scotians coming in and feeling they're part of this campus and feeling they're wanted here and welcomed here, so this exhibit really helps with that.
The opening ceremony for the exhibit was held on Tuesday. It encouraged many first-time visitors to the gallery to come for the art, but stay for the history.
Learn about my history and everything like that. This is one of them. See how the woman is and just where the house is. it just looks real peaceful and everything like that.
It has different tops about it. It has the color home of children, and it shows St. Thomas Baptist Church, and it has poem, and East Preston Church, and it has poems on it.
The exhibit runs until February 8th at the campus, and then it will be moved to St. Francis Xavier University until mid-March. Emma Lavender, Waterfront TV, Dartmouth.
Coming up on Waterfront TV, Gina Hawley tells us how one NSCC student is creating a network of support for the transgender community.
And we'll take you to Pop Goes the Easel, a kids program at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia. That's next on Waterfront TV.